it's a goal. Who got the assist? Who got the assist?
Greetings to sisters. So the international break is ending with an overhead kick from Scott McTominay, who Sam's nominated as the next Ballon d'Or winner. And we're done for 2025 where that's concerned after this. Come on, you boys in green, especially. And back into FPL good and proper with 11 deadlines, I think it is, and 7 weeks to take us into the new year. Really looking forward to it. It's the most wonderful time of the year in many ways, isn't it? But first, no international break is complete with us. A lot of key players having doubts over them, with some breaking news incoming this afternoon, which sent the pod agenda scrambling. To discuss that and more, I'm joined as always by Sam. You're right, mate. How you doing?
Yeah, all good, thanks. We nearly had to postpone the pod, didn't we, or set it back a few minutes due to some late running trains, but we're here on time, so we're on our merry way. And unfortunately, most of our players seem to be out, but we're okay. I think we're all good for game week 12. As always, we are Who Got the Assist. On today's agenda, we'll be taking a bit more of a look back at game week 11. We had a bit of a flyby last week, but we'll take a bit more of an in-depth look at how that went. And then, of course, move on to the international break, breaking news over the last couple of days. And, of course, quite a few flags meet us back ahead of game week 12 in our teams, as I'm sure a lot of you can relate to as well. So maybe a digression into how FPL managers should be dealing with situations like this, especially with limited information on certain players. Obviously, we got a bit more on one in particular today. But do we want to react early? Do we want to wait for more info? How do we see the lay of the land at this point? And then, of course, we'll be moving on to all of the standard stuff. Form versus fixtures makes a return, and 1 week punts. Captaincy as well might be finally a week to bet against Haaland, possibly. And finally wrapping up with our teams. So have we got any further with our thinking? Who knows? We'll find out in about an hour and 10 time or so. It is Tuesday, the 18th of November. You can date this because Scott McTominay has scored himself a hell of a goal for Scotland, going 1-0 up against Denmark. I'm sure we'll be keeping up to date with that in the background. But of course, we've got some international break action going on in the background. Most of the internationals are done and dusted, but our players haven't gotten through it unscathed, have they, Tom? So we'll take a look first at game week 11, and then we'll move on to some flags.
Yeah, all right, let's do it. So, as mentioned last week, we kind of wanted to keep that kind of fairly short. But you did have a good, a green arrow on bench boost at least, even if it wasn't the best bench boost in the world. And I guess more than anything, as we said at the time, just the relief of getting rid of that and just focusing your transfers on your 11 now must be the main thing in terms of using it.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, 52 points from me. So if it wasn't on a bench boost, I would have been very happy with that score. Obviously, a little bit of a flat one, considering bench boost scored me, I think, 6 points. So a disaster, really, if we're being honest. But I would still take it. Like, all of my players played, which I was actually starting to worry about. And I didn't need to use a transfer. I still haven't used a transfer since I wildcarded, which was back in game week 8. So my plan worked perfectly to roll all the way through to bench boosting, except the bench boost itself was terrible. And now I've got 4 free transfers at least to kind of get away from any players that I feel have been stinking up my side for a little while. Of course, I've got some flags in my 15. So I'm glad I didn't wait on the bench boost for this week, which was in the back of my mind. And although it was a failure last week, if I was coming into this week with 3 or 4 flags and a few players that I'm not happy with anyway, it probably would have been even more of a disaster trying to set up for it. So I'm glad it's done. A green arrow up to 600-ish K. And I'm very happy with the position I'm in at the moment. Saka, João Pedro, Voltemada and Haaland, the only ones who did anything for me. So yeah, bit of a flat one, not really much to talk about. 2 missed penalties in there, 4 in the season so far, and none of my defenders did anything. So on we move. Over to game week 12 for me.
Yeah, exactly. It was similar vibes here. So, ended up with just scraping that green arrow as mentioned. I feel like I'm just being love bombed by FPL at this point, Sam. 6 green arrows in a row, and yeah, I know I'm at 1.8 million. So I've halved my rank in 6 weeks, 3.6 to 1.8. So that's a big plus. But it's very tough going. 140k places gained this week with my 43. I had 2 free transfers in the end. So where you rolled, I moved, which is probably symbolic of kind of you and I in our mixed fortunes. Gyökeres and Gordon went out, and Thiago and Enzo came in. I left enough cash in the bank for Saka if I wanted him, but I decided, Enzo for the Wolves and Burnley matches. Was probably where I wanted to go. I was thinking moving the Argentinian on already. I was really thinking that strongly last week, but obviously things have changed a tiny bit now. Yeah, basically scraped a green arrow. I think it's by 1 point above safety, thanks to Thiago's brace against 10-man Newcastle. Huge damage was done by 2 of your players, Saka and João Pedro, and obviously Bumo as well. I'd love a good sort of moonshot week, but I've got a feeling we discussed last week, I'm just going to have to crawl up ladder slowly but surely. I think that just seems to be the way, covering exposures and things like that. It's just one of those things that, yeah, it seems the best way, the most sensible way to dig myself out of the particular hole I found myself in this year. So yeah, frustrating progress. Only 1 free transfer and obviously a few things to deal with. But as we'll discuss in just a second, I think there's only one that really does need to be moved. The rest of them probably I own Semenyo. And I think it's just Semenyo. I think
Enzo's flagged as well, but I think he'll be okay.
Enzo is one that I think I'm going to have to just hope shows up. But yeah, Enzo Gabriel and Enzo Gabriel and Semenyo are the 3 that I've got. I think there's one obvious one does need to be moved on because international break. I kind of feel like we've been quite lucky actually with international breaks. And Arsenal haven't been as lucky. So Odegaard in September, Saka in October, Visser, I think, for Newcastle got injured with DR Congo for Newcastle fans. But no real sort of FPL thing going on, I don't think, until this point. And I've got to just note the irony, Sam, that last week we anointed 3 players, Haaland, Semenyo, and Gabriel, as being the ones who are nailed in members of the template. And 2 of them are now international break injury victims, and one's obviously a lot more concerning than the other. To run through what's gone on, maybe another one out there or 2. Gabriel, I think we'll talk about him in just a second, because obviously that's the bigger topic. Timber, there was some temporary worry last night, took a hit in heavy challenge, but kept playing, as far as I understand, and might be all right, should be all right.
He played for another 80 minutes after. Yeah.
There you go. Then. Absolutely fine. A little bit of a limp, but he'll be fine. Calafiori left the Italy camp with a hip issue. He's been flagged, but Fabrizio Romano saying he'll be all right. So yeah, I assume that'll be fine. Mark Gahey left the England camp to continue rehab. Not sure where he is, what he's doing. Waiting for Glasner, I suppose, on that one, Sam. But
didn't was on crutches.
Okay, so bit of a question there. Maybe Mr. Cambo comes in again. Yeah, and Semenyo. So it's quite an interesting one. So left Ghana with an injury according to their FA, but then the Ghanaian news site said it was personal reasons, and some FPL Twitter sleuthing figured out that it was Semenyo's anniversary on the day of his release from camp. So maybe he was just excusing himself for some nookie. But he did get subbed off in the game. So he didn't just withdraw himself. He did actually get subbed off in the game. So we just don't know. I just don't know. Unless you've seen something.
There's news on this, Tom. So not only did he withdraw for personal reasons, he actually got engaged. So congratulations to the Semenyo family. He's now engaged. It looks like the anniversary dinner was actually an engagement dinner. It seems like that was the reason. So it doesn't mean he's any more fit than he was before. He could still be injured. Like the 2 things are mutually exclusive. But
yeah.
But if he withdrew early for that reason, I think that's fair enough. Fingers crossed he's all right. And I think there are some sources suggesting he'll be all right as well, aren't there?
Yeah, I did enjoy if he's injured, how can he be spending time with his girlfriend? What's he going to do? Just go and sit in a room and
exactly
feel sad
in a cryo chamber.
Okay, congratulations, Semenyos. News that Sesko is out for a few weeks, not months as feared. They initially thought that, we'll have to go into the market for a striker. It's about 3 weeks, which obviously is a lot of FPL. So that kind of pushes Cunha stonks through the roof. I've already seen the FPL review strongly favouring Mateus Cunha. And as you mentioned, Enzo Fernandez has a flag, didn't play for Argentina. FPL Harry on Planet FPL saying he didn't really see a world where he didn't play against Burnley or he start against Burnley. I think the minutes have got to be in question there, though, Sam, haven't they?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Harry. I think he'll start, but I've like in all of the different review metrics and all of the different ways that you can check these things, I've brought his expected minutes down to something like 60 or 70, because you look at the upcoming schedule. If he's dealing with any kind of knock or injury, he's got Barcelona in the midweek, followed by Arsenal after that. Then I think it's Leeds away, which is not an easy fixture anyway. In the midweek after, like, the games come thick and fast, and Chelsea have got some big ones. Burnley's the one where you'd think, okay, you can start them, make sure the game's wrapped up, but after 60, 70, I wouldn't be surprised to see him come off. And that is weighing quite heavily on my mind, because there are other midfielders I really do want, even though I really like that fixture. I only kind of really like it if it's 90 minutes, and that when there are other players who will get 90 minutes with not quite as good fixtures, but I think the minutes outweigh the fixture, it's quite tempting to have a look at that one, which makes no logical sense against Burnley. But yeah, it's playing on my mind a bit.
I'm with you. I mean, I was looking at removing him for Saka last week, but if I had more than one free transfer, I think I'd still be going ahead with that. Maybe a hit's on the table, but I don't really think so. But yeah, the obvious kind of bit of news is that Mr. Gabriel, the news this afternoon was that Ornstein and the Athletic reporting that he's facing potentially 1 to 2 months out. Caveat is that, but tests continue, and I think it's probably, Sam, safe to assume he won't be around this weekend at least. And it's kind of the best, obviously not great for Gabriel, wish him well, etc. But it's probably the best news that us owners could have possibly had, as in the best source of news that we could possibly have got this from. Just relate that to calendar. If he's out for a month, that means he's back in game week 17. If it's 2 months, it means he's back in game week 22. So yeah, I think
big layoff.
Yeah, that starts, Sam, to make you think, I think maybe that's become a, obviously we'll wait and see. I don't think we'll get too much from Arteta. Maybe hopefully we'll get reported on and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously tests ongoing, but I feel like if they know it's, or if they're suggesting and it's in the open media now that it's apparently 1 to 2 months, they know it's going to be quite bad. I guess the tests are, okay, how quickly can we get him back on the training pitch? Do we need to operate? That kind of thing. As just how severe is the injury? If we're already seeing from someone as reliable as Ornstein that he's going to potentially miss 1 to 2 months, I'd be pretty confident he misses 12, 13, 14, 15 all come within a week. Then 16 as well after that is just a 3-week period from now. I'd be very surprised to see him before we get those 5 free transfers. So yeah, I think he's a sell. I think it is that obvious now. I don't think you can hold on to a player. His value will drop like a stone. There are other really good picks. Well, all of the picks are below his price in midfield. So you're automatically downgrading. It just makes all the logical sense in the world. I guess the one question is, who are you going to be bringing in? Oh, there's one man who is going to be the popular pick, but there are certainly other options, aren't there, Tom? I don't think it's as easy or as obvious as, oh yeah, just pick the same bloke but from Liverpool. Like, I think you can look at other options here, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I suppose just to walk it back a quick second before we go into the picks, Sam. We were saying last week about the template. I suppose that, people obviously don't wish injury and things like that. Well, some people do, actually, judging by my group chats, but most people don't wish injury. And but I think, kind of that being said, the dilution or the watering down of the template is always quite a good thing. I think a fix tweeted today that 13% in the top 1K have Gabriel, Enzo, and Semenyo. But yeah, Gabriel, I think we saw last week, was over 85%, something like that ownership. Yeah. So that's all probably going to go somewhere. And there are lots of replacements on the table. Now, worth noting as well that we know that not all of you have Gabriel. So maybe treat this as a bit of extra form versus fixtures for your delectation too. but there are certainly ones that are on the table for us here. And the most obvious one that I think a lot of people will go to is Big Verge, right, Sam?
Yeah, it is. It is, in fairness, the obvious choice because people were talking about him anyway, right? I think if he'd scored against Man City and that goal had counted, I don't think many of us would even be having this discussion. He'd just be in a lot of teams regardless. I understand why there are naysayers, though, because the form just has not been there. Liverpool defensively have been pretty suspect so far this season. However, they have had one of the toughest runs, and the fixtures coming are turning a corner. They are pretty amazing all the way through Christmas. And like I said on the pod this time last week, the thing is, at this time of the season, you do want those nailed 90-minute men who you know that you don't need to look at the team sheet every single fixture. You know that they're just going to be in there. Van Dijk provides that. Now, there are other options that also provide that as defensive options, but he also does play for a team that can keep a lot of clean sheets in this run. As bad as they have been, I think they are improving defensively. And of course, he's got goal threat and DEFCON. So he's kind of got that perfect blend of all of the different routes to points. That's not to say that he's the only one you can be going for, though. Like, some people out there will just be saying, but Liverpool have been rubbish. Why are we even thinking about it? Well, it is a fixtures play. That doesn't mean there aren't other good options, though. And I'm considering other options as well. I don't have a Palace defender. So someone like a Daniel Munoz could be really interesting. It's definitely still wide open, but I can understand why so many are going to go to Van Dijk, and he's well within my consideration set as well.
Yeah, mine too. He's got to be the go-to in the Liverpool backline. I know that Konate is there. But I suppose there's definitely kind of that. It's just that with Van Dijk, you've got the baseline bonus. You've got the DEFCON, second for net DEFCONs behind Senesi.
Yeah.
I think he's one ahead of Richards, two ahead of Lacroix. It's a ridiculous amount behind the Bournemouth bloke. And I don't know, but the threat from set piece idea doesn't really help that much at the moment so far. He's only had 4 headed chances so far. That's all he's had, just 4 shots this year. So 0.36 something per game. But 2 of those have been big chances. I don't know. It's just one of those things, isn't it? It just depends on the verses. But I mean, if you want an attacking centre back, Ballard's your man. That's for sure. But will Liverpool keep clean sheets? Well, given the fixtures, you can't look at that and think, I mean, there's got to be no better chance than this. They've got really good expected minutes. Well, he's got as up end as you could possibly get. And he's just going to be possibly the top option. If, as I said, 86% of people have to go somewhere, it probably won't be. It isn't too much of a stretch. Just think, getting Virgil in for the foreseeable future into the new year. Just do that. It's the no-brainer. Off you go. But as you said, there are other options out there on the table. And been asked in the chat now. Would you go to Virgil? Or would you go to another Arsenal defender or a Timber or something like that? Assuming Timber is okay, as is Calafiori, as is Saliba, Sam. What do you reckon if you were thinking, I'm just going to go across with an Arsenal player?
Yeah, I'll quickly wrap up on Virgil just because I have one other thing to quickly say on it. And then I'll pivot into Arsenal as well, if that's all right. So with Van Dijk, I agree. He's only had 4 headed chances so far. Remember, one was a goal ruled out, so that would have been a 5th. Liverpool are improving from set pieces recently, and they're going up against 2 of the worst sides defending set pieces in the next 2 game weeks. So Nottingham Forest followed by, is it West Ham after? I think it's West Ham. Yep. The 2 of the worst defending set pieces so far this season. So I think that still works. In terms of other Liverpool players, I think with Konate, he's great until he's not. Like, he will probably get injured at some point. He does usually go down, and with this busy fixture period, I wouldn't be surprised. Just feels like too much of a risk for me. I'd go with Van Dijk. Across to Arsenal, it's a similar story where, okay, Timber I've currently got. I was actually kind of considering offloading him next week if Gabriel before Gabriel became an issue. Because as much as I love double Arsenal defense, I do think that if I was going to buy or pick between Virgil van Dijk and Timber over this run, I think Virgil van Dijk makes slightly more sense because he's not going to miss any games. Timber might. Now, the Gabriel injury might mean that they're not going to even think about rotating anyone else in that back line, but I think at this point now, only Saliba's the one that I'd expect to start all of them. Calafiori, I think, will miss games. And Timber might miss one. Like, I'm more confident on Timber than I am Calafiori by a long way. But I still think it's fairly reasonable to assume that Timber misses one in the next stretch through Christmas. He's still going to be a great pick, even if he misses one. As long as you've got a decent enough bench that week, you're fine, because he'll make up for it with attacking returns at some point, you'd think. But I think if I was buying fresh right now, I think I might go with Virgil, as long as I had some sort of other Arsenal coverage already. So if I had Raya, I'd probably spread with Virgil. But what do you think? Would you still go from Gabriel to another one, even if you didn't have that cover elsewhere?
If I didn't have the second one, I think at the moment I think I'd look at the fixtures same as you and probably make a bet. And a lot of it's kind of situational. So you said earlier on, in a Palace defender, neither do I. So it's a case of choosing between the two for me. If I was looking at Arsenal, I can only agree with you that the Saliba's your safe bet, and obviously there is a school of thought, could be hopium, that he becomes the new kind of set piece target with Gabriel missing. Now, I did have a look at he's only had 2 goal attempts this year, compared to a fair few more for Gabriel and loads more for Calafiori, by the way. Calafiori's had the most shots of any defender by a country mile, and most shots inside the box, most shots outside the box. Got a very nice kind of, he's not shot shy, put it that way. But I still can't help but agree that if you want the minutes, go for a Saliba, and he and Gabriel kind of represent a like for like, but one has better fixtures, one is a slightly stronger defense. It is quite difficult to disentangle the two. I would be inclined to go with the fixture pick for now. In terms of the other Arsenal defenders right now, Calafiori, Timber, both fine, but there's a caveat you described. Wouldn't touch Mosquera. I think he's Saliba's backup, and Arteta likes the left footer in that LCB position. A few intrepid folk have suggested Hincapi, but we just need to find out what happens on that side, and I couldn't honestly tell you what that looks like yet, because you've got MLS, you've got Calafiori, you've got Hincapi. Calafiori or Hincapi could play LCB. Either could go at left back. MLS can obviously play left back. There's a lot of kind of pieces to kind of that need to fall into the jigsaw there. So I don't know. Same question back to you. If you had gone down to 0 Arsenal defensive, would you be comfortable with that, given the fact that we have obviously the best defense in the league, but the fixtures, they're not awful, are they? But we're not kind of walking into, well, obviously Arsenal are the tough fixture. There's no getting away from that. But we're not walking into lots of tricky games per se. They're not fantastic. We're not playing Wolves and then Burnley and then so on and so forth. We've already done that. But equally, they're not ones that you're looking at, apart from the Chelsea game, maybe even 13. You're not looking at any of these games and thinking, well, there's no chance Arsenal don't keep a clean sheet there.
No, not at all. Look, that I would still want a Arsenal defender for sure. Obviously, it's situational, and every pick is different. You should weigh them up on their own merit, not just the fact that they play for Arsenal. So, if you are looking to buy an Arsenal defender now, buying a Calafiori is more risky than a Virgil van Dijk, and you have to weigh them up against each other. But I would try my best to try and find a secure way into that Arsenal backline, which is guaranteeing you the chance of a clean sheet each week. Even without Gabriel, they might be slightly worse off defensively, but they're a system defense. There is no chance that they just drop off a cliff. They'll still be very good on the defensive data. They might get unlucky and concede a few more here or there, but that can happen with any team. I would still be betting on the Arsenal defense to do very well over this stretch, especially over Christmas. And this might just be my own internal biases creeping in, but it does feel like over this period of the congested fixtures, defenses win titles, and they win these kind of games 1-0, 2-0. They keep it tight. They don't overexert themselves going forward. The best way of winning these games is by keeping it tight at the back and just rolling through to the next week without expending too much energy. And I think that's what they'll try and look and do as much as possible. Try and win it 1-0, 2-0, wrap up the game, keep it tight, move on. And I think Arsenal are well equipped to do that even without Gabriel. So yeah, they'll concede the odd goal as all teams will, but they're more likely to keep clean sheets than any other team in the league, even without Gabriel and even with slightly worse fixtures.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely correct. So I mean, there's another fixtures play. Obviously, Man City do have Newcastle away this week, which is one probably means that right now you wouldn't be entirely sure about jumping on. But Nico O'Reilly, Matheus Nunes, Guardiola, Ruben Diaz, all have some very good fixtures coming up. In terms of O'Reilly, Johnny Pringle was pretty keen on him with Clash Correspondence. 8 chances created for him. Actually, quite a few shots. 11. Same number as Timber. Rans off the AFCONs I mentioned last week. Matheus Nunes is an option, both for holding width, so that like Sudoku can cause havoc. It just feels like at the moment, with Man City's second highest goal scorer, his own goal, also known as Maxim Estev, who's down to 3.9 now, by the way, budget hero.
Bargain.
It just feels like with them, you've got more of a chance to kind of wait and see. Whereas with the Liverpool players, and we'll come on to the Palace players, or if you want to kind of just keep the Arsenal defence up in terms of your cover, that probably feels the better call right now than going early on a Man City player. I think there's probably, I think you can be fairly confident, for example, that like O'Reilly, if this is probably going to date very easily, but you're probably fairly confident that O'Reilly will play, Nunez will play, Guardiola will play. Ruben perhaps less interesting. It's very much a 2 or 6. So I think he got DEFCONs a couple of times. That's probably about it. Don't know. There's always that, but it's Pep, and I could be Pep hanging over these players, isn't there, Sam? It just makes you a slight bit uneasy about buying them.
That's it. Unfortunately, unless your name's Erling Haaland, or maybe Donnarumma now as well, it's very, like we said it early season with even Reinders. I was harping on about this 4 or 5 game weeks ago. They're safe until they're not, and O'Reilly, I think, is the one that does interest me because he's cheap. He's got some attacking threat and he is phenomenal. Like, let's be real here. He is a brilliant, brilliant player. But Man City have got loads of brilliant players and they'll rotate them in and out. And do I think he'll start the majority? Yeah, probably. But I still think he'll lose some minutes somewhere in this Christmas period. And I don't have the depth to support that in a random week. So for now, I'm not going to go there. Maybe around the time we get to AFCON and Ait Nouri, the most natural player to also play in that role, he goes off, obviously, to AFCON most likely. That might mean that O'Reilly is a little bit more secure, and maybe by that point he started the last 4 games anyway, and I'm even more confident. Right now, I like him. I like the look of him, and if he continues to start, I will become convinced on him really quickly. It's just that back of the mind feeling that Pep's going to spring a Pep at some point. And he sets such high standards. It only takes one bad performance. We saw it with Rico Lewis several times, where one bad performance and it's like, all of a sudden I'm wondering, I'm looking at that team sheet and I'm panicking every week to see whether or not his name's on it. And I don't like that when we go into this period of the season. When you've got other players who are so secure at around the same price, who offer probably around the same sort of expected points when they're on the pitch, I'll take the player with the better expected minutes.
If you're going for safety on that, I think you're probably looking at Guardiola or Ruben Diaz. Ruben Diaz has the second most minutes this year behind Haaland. He's the only one who's also got over 900. Guardiola was carrying some sort of injury as well, which is obviously a bit worrying. Obviously, he can play that left back role and could potentially, it is a threat from set pieces, whereas Diaz is more of your plodder. I think maybe a way of charitably putting it. I think I saw that Diaz has got fairly decent like BPS accrual, but the baseline isn't particularly high, as you'd expect, because it doesn't do very much in that team. And I don't know, it's similar to Van Dijk, really. I mean, it's or Saliba. They're all kind of quite dour picks, really. I know that everyone's looking at Van Dijk this week, but very easily, if City keep another clean sheet, people might be looking at Ruben and just saying, well, okay, he's going to play, probably. He's got the minutes, but I think the probably is the bit that makes people go, probably. Van Dijk should clear an obvious pick if you want to do this. I mean, it is, in some ways, you're kind of debating goalkeepers, aren't you, a little bit, when you're looking at that. Well, I do like O'Reilly a lot. It's just the air butt. at the moment. I suppose it's priced in, but with him, you do kind of run the risk a bit more of the dreaded 30-minute cameo, which isn't really what you're looking for when you've got really backed up fixtures and congested fixtures. It just makes me nervous a
Yeah.
little bit. Final dimension to this is the Palace slot. And obviously, this is a bit of a wrinkle. So a lot of people are cleverer than us, Sam, and have had Palace players for quite a long while. Any of them, it's worth saying, including, of course, an ugly sister, Tyrone Mitchell, a figure of speech. He's a perfectly good-looking lad. They're all fine picks if you don't own already. And if you do own a Palace pick already, Van Dijk is your clear and obvious pick, unfortunately. But if you don't, then I think that creates an interesting question this week if you're not using 2 transfers on defenders in terms of prioritization, because Van Dijk and Liverpool had that sort of long fixture stretch. I think Palace is a little bit shorter, but it does take in away visits to Wolves and then Burnley in a couple of weeks, and there are they're all interesting, aren't they? They're all reasonable picks. So I think poor old Tyrick is probably the bottom of the list. So maybe he won't get too many mentions here. But we're both looking at Daniel Munoz. One thing I did look up before this, and unfortunately, Colombia have got a match at 1:30 a.m. Against Australia. He did play. He was on the bench the prior game. He is in the squad, so he might be playing quite late. But he is a Duracell, so you never know. I mean, I guess maybe we're going a bit too far down. We don't want to kind of spend too long talking about just our own situations here. But for us, with no Palace player defender, Sam, it's definitely one which is quite tricky compared to if you're just like, okay, I've got Gahey in place already. I'm just buying Virgil and I'm sorted.
Yeah. I mean, Munoz is so much more exciting to own than Van Dijk. Like, just subjectively, it would be much more fun to have him, and I love him as a pick. Like, he's got so much attacking threat. As someone who's got Sarr but not Mateta, I would feel quite comfortable having both Munoz and Sarr to go up against Mateta. Having 2 of the 3 of the Holy Trinity of Palace does seem quite a nice way of going against the third one. Yeah, I guess the problem with Palace, not a problem, but the reason that maybe Van Dijk is slightly ahead of Munoz in my thinking is that there are cheaper alternatives with Palace that I can get to in other spots. So Munoz is great, but Richards is probably not going to be a million miles off of him in points over the next few, unless Munoz goes crazy on actual attacking output, which he'll tick along nicely, but we're not expecting him to get 20 extra attacking returns a season. Richards gets DEFCON at 4.5. Lacroix gets DEFCON and a bit of attacking threat from set pieces at 5. Gahey might be injured. We're a little bit worried about that, but also at 5 million gets attacking threat from set pieces, bit of DEFCON there. So I do just wonder if at the price point that we're talking about here, is it worth going for Munoz when Van Dijk's there, when you can also cover off the Palace clean sheet at a cheaper price and still have those other little avenues to points? It's something that I'm really, that is playing on my mind, because I don't have another easy route to a Palace player anyway. So it is pretty much a head-to-head between Van Dijk, Munoz, or another Crystal Palace downgrading Gabriel to do so. And where could I use that money best? But I do feel like there's a bit of a crowd rush to Van Dijk, and I can see him doing really well in the next, well, quite a while through Christmas. Like, the fixtures go on much further than Palace. So is it just sensible to get that done now and then just not have to even worry about that position until the new year? Probably, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there is the existential worry about the Palace defenders, though, if they do have a couple of quite good fixtures coming up. But this is Man United sandwiching the 2 away games. In fact, all of their home games are a bit tough. It's just the away games which are the ones you kind of look at. And to try and disentangle them, I suppose Munoz, he's taking the shots, so he's further shots amongst defenders. He's got the best defender XGI out there, 28th overall, so in the top 30. I saw earlier on he had better XGI than the likes of Bowen, Watkins, and Calafiori as well, who's taking all those shots. But it just shows that, quality over quantity translates into about 0.3 XGI per 90, which is that's fairly good for a defender, and his position's crazy. So exciting own. DEFCONs. Only 6 compared to 10 for Gahey and 12 for Lacroix and Richards.
Not nothing, though.
No, exactly. He's
all right.
I'm sure I've got this in my mind. I'm sure I need to double check it, but I'm sure we said at pre-season that he does a lot of tackles when
Yeah.
we were looking at the C bit.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. Lacroix and Richards, equal for DEFCON. Lacroix underperforming his XG. I don't know. I've got a suspicion, a bit like Tarkovsky. He's a ball meets head rather than head meets ball attacker from set pieces, if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
Gets in the good
Very
position,
good.
doesn't really know what to do. Richard's been excused from international duty, gets held in everything, probably like for likes. As the CCB, you're paying the extra 0.5 for the quad for the certainty of minutes, I think. Seemingly, Camvo has come in to show he can do a job. I mean, could Richards, who's apparently carrying something, so got excused from international duty, could he miss game week 14, for example, that Burnley game?
That's
when
my
you may be
worry.
looking to bring him in. So I think that if I don't bring in Munoz this week, I think I do Virgil, and I think I'll probably buy the Qua in game week 14 and miss out on Munoz altogether. And Gahey, obviously, marginally best for bonus, some shooting, question marks over fitness are huge. And I think a lot of the Palace ownership is actually carried within that one player. So if he's out, then I think I'm going to be a lot more emboldened to just think, right, screw it. I hope that handsome Rob Edwards can enact a predatory instinct within Wolves. It's a very difficult head-to-head. I just kind of feel like you're right in terms of just get Van Dijk sorted. Just get in there, forget about it. I think we both said at the start of the year that if there was a player we were going to own all year, it would be Van Dijk, and neither of us put him in game at one teams, did we? So,
yeah, it was very similar to that. Yeah, I mean, he ranks so highly on the DEFCON even before this season. He just does have all of the different tick boxes you would want for a very good defender, and he's at a slightly lower price than he started. It does seem like, are we overthinking this? The fact that neither of us have Palace defenders does make it more interesting for us than maybe with some other people. Some people might be listening to the section like, well, I've got my Palace defender, I've got Richards, so obviously it's Van Dijk and we'll just skip the section. For us, it's a bit more difficult, but I still get the feeling that the sensible play over the next longer run is Van Dijk, because setting your team up to not want to make a transfer in as many positions as possible for as long as possible is the best play. So yeah, probably Van Dijk, I think. Yeah, I think so.
A roundabout way of just saying, oh, we're just going to get the most solid option and forget about it. I think I'm going to do probably the same. I think I'm just hoping that, and again, not wishing anything, but I'm kind of just hoping that Glasner comes out and says, oh, I don't think Gahey's going to be fit, because I think that would take away a lot of the anxiety about the realistically. Yeah. I mean, the ceiling's not that high. Probably maybe it's from Munoz, but the ceiling's not that high for the Palace players. It's probably the same as Van Dijk's, but 8. So I mean, hopefully Van Dijk will be able to take that on and everything will be hunky dory. Yeah. Wait and see on Gabriel, I suppose. We've got those 5 free transfers. We can monitor him. His price will go down, so maybe a good time just to sell off. And
I'd say so.
Unfortunately. Right, on to form versus fixture. This initially did cover a few of those defenders, but now they've been removed hastily. Apologies for any typos within this, because it was done on the train. First up, Sam, flavour of the month. Jeremy Doku, flavour of the month, as in the fact that he did well versus Liverpool, and now everyone's talking about him. He did have a price drop before that, and it's not escaped my notice that he's got 2 goals and an assist against the mighty Liechtenstein tonight, but doing well in the underlying data as well. 9th for non-pen XGI this year, in those sort of central areas now as well. A new license to roam. There's been lots of content about this in places like the Athletic, and with O'Reilly, who we've spoken about already, providing that kind of width behind him. We saw that versus Liverpool. There's a men's risk, but the data is pretty incredible, really. I mean, this probably won't surprise anybody, but 99th percentile for progressive carry, successful tight take-ons, lots of expected assists, his shot creating actions, he's second behind Bruno Fernandes, but per 90, 6.8 shot creating actions per 90. That's pretty mad. 3 big chances, he scored none, but he's created 30% of City's chances this year. 4th pen box touches too, if anyone cares about that. And he's now in the top 10 for goal involvement, as I mentioned. So I think it works out as like kind of 0.69 XGI per 90, which puts him 4th overall. I mean, that's pretty damn good, really. And with City's run coming up, is he just too rich for your blood, Sam, or is he a player that you are considering with your many, many millions of free transfers?
Yeah, he won't be in my team anytime soon. He's incredible. He's been brilliant this season, but he's also only started 3 of the last 5 in the Premier League, and we're going into the busiest period of the season. I hate to sound like a broken record. You don't want to be checking the team sheet every week and wondering whether or not he starts. Like, you can't afford to do it. Like, he might get the odd haul, but or the XGI is great and all, but Haaland is such a vacuum that he's just not going to get that many hauls, especially if he's starting 50%, 60% of the matches. At 6.4 million, there are just way better options at that price point. I'm rarely this partisan on a player. I really like him as a player. He was incredible against Liverpool. I think he deserves to start every week because he's been brilliant. In the past, his end product has been terrible. It's getting much better. But they've got so many good options in those positions. It just changes one tiny tweak, or they've got midweek matches. They've got big Champions League matches to come. He's not going to start all the games. I can't. I just can't at 6.4 million. He'd have to be like 5 million for me to consider it. I'm just not doing it for now. Until he starts and plays 80 plus minutes a match, not for me.
Traditionally, he would be a player that I'd be very interested in, just because I am a fire starter. But I have Yankuba Minte, who for a lesser team basically does the same thing in terms of providing a lot of joy to watch, while also being a little bit cheaper. Yeah, I mean, I can see why people are going there. Honestly, I think the underlying kind of transfer market is pretty favourable to Doku this week. I mean, it's over 150,000 transfers, maybe something like that. So he's going to be a factor as people cast around to figure out exactly where they go with City. And if he does do something against Newcastle, Sam, I do feel like he could be kind of a bandwagon that develops. It's just one to kind of just raise right now. I think that we did discuss it last week that probably there are a few more steady picks that probably should merit the spot in your team. I think I kind of put him down as kind of the 5th midfielder in a 3-5-2. It's that sort of thing.
Yeah,
I don't quite have that at the moment. Not on this, but worth discussing. Coming up in some circles is Phil Foden. In the top 50 for XGI, just about, not doing much. At the moment to be of interest to us managers, but starting games, he's got near 90s basically since game week 4. As FPL General noticed on his pod, he's taken a hell of a lot of corners, 45, the most of any player. I feel like he's basically turned into Pep's Szoboszlai a little bit, really, just kind of ticking along in centre midfield. Like a bit of an Odegaard, maybe.
Functional.
City's answer to Odegaard, you know, the assister, ball progressor sort of fella, second for shot creating actions for City amongst after Doku. You know, in the past we've both enjoyed a Fodening and been done over by a Fodening. I just don't know at the moment if I'm quite there with it. I just feel like he's a bit of an X-Minutes, merchant, a bit like Szoboszlai, as we'll speak about in a minute.
Yeah, I prefer Phil Foden over Doku by quite a way. It's just the price right now doesn't make it easy. The minutes have been very good. And with Foden, I've always said if the minutes are there, he's a good pick. The data has veered off a little bit and he's playing a slightly different role to before. So we have to take that into account. But I don't hate it as a pick. I just think right now, whilst we still have all of the players before they go off to AFCON, I think there are better picks at that sort of price point. Like Mbermo at 0.5 more provides so much more attacking upside and has the same sort of level of confidence of minutes, possibly even less risky, because like whilst Phil Foden is getting 90 a match right now, we've seen it in the past where he has a little run of 90, and then bench 3 weeks in a row. And it does just happen. And there's no way of really telling when it's going to happen. So I do like him. I'm not tempted to go there myself just yet, but he's on my radar at some point if the minutes continue to look good and if the data starts ticking upwards. I think he's in good form as well, generally. So I don't hate it, but I'm not fully sold at that price yet. I'd need to see a bit more from him to make him worth that sort of price point. And in that same sort of bracket, you've got some good picks right now that are outperforming him, I would say.
Okay, I agree with you. So turn the page to Liverpool. With that fixture swing, Sam, you just got to wish that Isaac didn't sign. So Ekitike was
Yeah.
clear as a pick. Or, Ekitike went to Newcastle, so Isaac was clear as a pick. As we mentioned last week, Salah maybe is a bit too pricey to break into the template, but I mean, it won't take very much. People start ripping up their teams for him, let's be fair. And outside of Virgil, I think people are relying on one option, who's the Botzley. Worth a look for the minutes, or is he the next sort of Tielemans Paqueta type off the production line? He's on 4 yellows. Connor Bradley's also on 4 yellows, by the way. So he's looking like he might be getting a one game at right back at some point, unless they both get suspended at the same time. In terms of the data, a decent number of shots, lots from outside the box. Decent number of goal creating actions. I think he's on. I'm sure I saw Fix tweeted he was on like kind of near 12 defcons per game, but only 8
it's very
defcons
high.
scored. So he must have got, and some got lows, and then some not got too many. Decent on the bonus, creates decent amounts of chances. He's taken most set pieces of any player. Underperforming a tiny bit. Should maybe have one more return, maybe. But I mean, it's 0.28 XGI per game, Sam. It's just not that exciting for me. I kind of just feel like, in our desperation to kind of mold our team around fixtures, perhaps. Hypothetically, people are just trying to find an option, and Szoboszlai is kind of fulfilling that role.
I kind of agree with you. I think this is a situation where, in our wildest dreams, none of us thought that we'd get to game week 12, 13, and we wouldn't really have any Liverpool players to be going to, barring Van Dijk. Of course, we want an attacker, and Szoboszlai just seems to be the best of a bad bunch right now. Obviously, they're all better attackers than him in terms of the underlying data, but none of them are secure on the minutes, and they're higher priced. I think with Szoboszlai, it's the 4 yellows that completely puts me off right now. In a way, I kind of hope he gets that 5th yellow, right now in game week 12, gets banned for 13, and then you can maybe look at him with fresh eyes 14 onwards. But that could drag, and I think his ownership will remain relatively low whilst that drags regardless. So I'm not scared of him as a pick. That's good. The other thing, you mentioned the very high defcon. His average per 90 is very good, but you also noted the fact that he's only hit it a few times. That is because he has very good defcon playing right back. In the center of the park, it's much lower. So to get the defcon, you almost need him to be playing in the wrong position where he's less effective. So it balances that out, but there's never one specific position where he gets the whole lot, which again maybe puts me off slightly as well. On the other hand, it means he's never an awful pick, even if he does end up carted off to right back in Bradley's absence. So he's never a terrible pick, but he's also never a great one, because if he's playing Cam, he's probably not getting defcon. But I don't completely hate it at 6.5 million. I think he's all right. I wouldn't be ripping up my side for him. I think, like you said, it's mainly we're looking at him because no one else knows which other Liverpool players to go with any confidence. And honestly, I do agree that there are better options at this price right now than him, even despite the fixtures. So I'm not currently looking at him for this week.
If you had to choose one, Doku or Szoboszlai, which way would you go?
Szoboszlai 1,000,000 times over.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, by a mile.
Okay.
Guarantee of minutes all day long. He still has set pieces. He still has some defcon. Fine.
All right. Fair enough.
You know me as a player.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. So a couple of kind of more inexpensive strikers next, Thiago and Welbeck. Obviously, happy new Thiago owner. But the question is, Sam, pick up now or wait till after Arsenal if you are looking to go there, and maybe go somewhere else first?
Yeah, I'm really strongly considering picking Thiago up now. I don't mind the Brighton fixture. Obviously, the Burnley fixture is a good one. The Arsenal fixture in 14 is the only one that does put me off a little bit, but I do try to tell myself, don't look at one game week in particular, look at the stretch. And Brentford do have a very good stretch of fixtures, and his minutes are great. He's at a great price still. He's on penalties. The data's good. He's ticking all of the boxes. And I do need to save money in my forward line if I want a Man United midfielder. So as almost a double swap. So Thiago does make a lot of sense. I would prefer a Mateta slightly, but at that price, I think it does make a lot of sense. I'm also not against going with both Welbeck and Thiago. I think until today, I'd kind of ignored Welbeck entirely, but I've taken a look at not just the minutes, but also the fixtures upcoming. Brighton are out of the other competitions before Christmas. Their stretch with the congested period is about as nice as it gets compared to pretty much any other team. There's only that one midweek, but even that, I can still see Welbeck playing through, maybe getting reduced minutes in one, but I think he probably starts a lot of them.
Yeah.
So I do quite like him as well. And both Brighton and Brentford do have a good knack of getting penalties. They find a way to win penalties. FPL Tom did some fantastic analysis on that. So, yeah, I quite like them both. I think out of the two, I'd still prefer Thiago, but I don't mind either.
They're both really weird statistical anomalies at the moment. So Thiago, he's got the second best conversion rate of shots to goal for FPL relevant strikers, but Welbeck's first. And Welbeck's really weird. He's had 14 chances and half of them being big chances. So above 0.38 xg is the official line and what makes a big chance. I mean, I don't know what that means, but hey. And it's very, very odd that but they're both just converting a lot. I don't know if Welbeck you can kind of say, oh, it's just experience. With Thiago, I feel like he's kind of new to the league, so we haven't really got too much to kind of base that on. I did think when I was watching Thiago, right, it was the West Ham game where he scored, got another ruled out, and was general threat in that first half. I thought, yeah, you know what, this guy's coming in next time. I can kind of get there. At the price point, he's good. Welbeck's okay. I think in Welbeck's favour, similar to Thiago, you have, as you said, the fact there's not that many options going around. So he should get decent minutes despite the fact the fixtures are mounting up. I think either's a good pick. It's just that with Thiago, as you kind of rightly mentioned, there's that sort of longevity about his fixture run. There's Arsenal in game week 14 that you've got to handle. But beyond that, you're kind of looking at kind of mid-January when they play Chelsea away. The next time you see a fixture you're truly concerned about, and I think that at the price with a player who's the talisman for their team on penalties, as we've seen, I think that's just great value. As I mentioned last week, it's just such a surprise that Sade is the price he's at compared to Thiago at 7 million. It's pretty wild that you've got a 0.9, well, not now, a 0.7 difference between him and the second biggest attacking threat. I think it's just a great pickup. I think that
I agree.
The way forward is going to be probably Mateta, Haaland, and Thiago. And I can see Mateta being the one who falls away from that template first, and Thiago holding on for a little bit longer because the price and the enablement that kind of gives for the future questions is going to be quite big.
I agree.
Final two, Morgan Rogers, mentioned him last week, and not showing up very much, but a good next two or three maybe. Leeds away, Wolves at home, Brighton away. If you're wildcarding soon, could he be an interesting differential, Sam? And Villa are on an upswing too.
Yeah, I mean, again, he does tick the box of expected minutes, which we all know I love. The problem is his data has actually been awful so far this season. No real repeating of last year so far. And to be fair, his data last year wasn't all that great either. It's more just hoping that the player quality will shine through and Villa will start fashioning him, or him fashioning Villa a few more chances. And he's got, two good fixtures coming, but Leeds at home are an altogether different beast. They're much stronger defensively at home, it seems. So not an easy fixture in game week 12. Wolves probably is, but under new management, who knows? I would still care to wager that they'll be amongst one of the worst sides in the league anyway. So I don't mind that one. So I know a lot of people are looking at free hit in game week 13. He would be in contention on a free hit for me for that game week 13 fixture. Outside of that, if he was at 6 million, I would be much more tempted, and he would be in the debate between him and like a Minter, I would say. But at 6.8, he's tackling Enzo, Soboslai, Doku, Sarr, and Dai, some really quite high upside picks. And he's just not got the high upside so far this season. So, yeah, not one for me outside of a free hit in 13 until I see some slightly better data, I think.
Yeah, Villa's still struggling with the underlying attack. I mean, second bottom for Team XG behind Wolves at the moment. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it just goes to show they've gone back to basics, and he will get mins, as you said. So Buendia is actually the one who's keeping Elliot out of the team, for example, and doing all right at a cheaper price right now. Yeah, the stinky data probably would be one to put me off. But if you're knowledge differential, fair enough. I mean, it wasn't very long ago. Back in August, and we were looking at kind of Rodgers and Watkins. I mean, just goes to show how quickly things change in FPL.
Yeah.
And on that, last man's talk mentioned the Saka. And I can't get what you've said earlier on out of my head in terms of thinking about Arsenal for the next few weeks in terms of how we're going to approach games. As discussed last week, with Palmer still missing and Salah possibly too expensive, if you don't own, is he the premium to just sort of buy and hold? And what's really interesting about Saka's data, what's really important about that, is that he's kept pace with players who have played or at least appeared in every game this year. He's just about in the top 20 for underlying data, both overall and per 90. And he's only started 8 games and appeared in 9. Same amount of shots as Enzo. And, he's created the same amount of big chances as the likes of Semenyo, ahead of the likes of Enzo for best sort of pen box actions and things like that. It's one of those where you look at it and just think, is he the guy that you just kind of get in? And I do really want Saka. I think maybe game week 14 would be the entry point for me now, because I've got something else to deal with one free transfer. But if you don't own him, Sam, surely he should be one that you should be thinking, right, I just need to get that in, get it sorted, because he is showing signs of being what he can be.
Yeah, I think in recent weeks, probably the last 3 or 4 weeks, we've started to see Saka much closer to what we consider his best form. I think it's been a while. Obviously, he was struggling with injuries from about halfway through last season, and there were all sorts of weird stats going on about his lack of goal scoring and double-digit hauls and all of these sort of things since his injury all the way back in the previous November, I think it was. And now we are kind of seeing him properly fit again, really taking the bull by its horns and dominating games. He's doing it for England. He's doing it for Arsenal. I love the player. I think he's absolutely top quality. He's got different routes to points. He's on penalties. He takes a great corner as well, which obviously in Arsenal's team is a massive benefit. What I would say, though, is in your position, and those of you who don't own him, I don't think you need to rip apart your team to get him in the next 2 weeks necessarily. It's more game week 14 onwards. I'd probably be more concerned. If you've got an easy route to him this game week, absolutely do it. He's within the captaincy candidates for Spurs at home. I probably don't have him ahead of Haaland right now, which is probably why I'm saying he's not a must. But that's just my personal opinion. I know plenty of other people who disagree and have him ahead of Haaland. So if you think he's the best captain, I'd get it done. But I think it can hold off for 14. The only thing I would say, just to play devil's advocate on Saka even, not Salah, is that Madueke is back or should be back after the international break. And given the injuries I've just mentioned with Saka in the past, given the fact that Arsenal have had issues with keeping him fit in the second half of the season because they just run him into the ground, I do wonder if Madueke steals a few minutes here and there over this next stretch. And I would be surprised if Madueke starts in game week 14, but I wouldn't be surprised if he takes 30 or 40 minutes off of him in one of these matches. And that might make him a slightly less important or less essential pick. But I still think the minutes will be good. So I'm very happy owning him. It's just, if I didn't own him right now, maybe it's not as obvious a decision as I still would have him, put it that way.
I'm willing to give it a couple of weeks. I mean, we missed him out here as well, but we mentioned last week, if there's a choice between Saka or a United player and a Bumo who sit currently for underlying, or Bruno, who scored a hat-trick against for Portugal against the mighty Armenia. I mean, that is also quite an interesting kind of dilemma for someone if we're looking to make a midfield swap this week. I mean, with all these things, it does feel like you can probably leave it a week, or maybe in this case, you might be looking, I don't know, Sam, if you were in the situation where you had to choose Saka or a United player, which one would you favour? That's a difficult conundrum, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I think maybe just about Saka, very slightly over Bruno. But there's not much in it. It depends what else you're doing with that extra 1 million or 1.2 million. But yeah, I think I think the thing that would sway me towards Saka over Bruno very slightly is I'm more comfortable with the idea that Saka is a good secondary captain to have in some of these weeks. Like I'm more open to the idea of captaining Saka in game week 12 or in game week, I think it's 14 as well. There are certain weeks where Haaland goes up away against more difficult opponents. Saka's got a decent home fixture. I do quite like that. Whereas with Bruno, it's not bad. I don't mind it as an alternative captain, but I would prefer him alongside a Saka instead of a Saka. Whereas I think Saka is that first building block I would want to build a midfield round right now. Plus, it's an easy route to Palmer if Saka doesn't work out, and Palmer's got some good fixtures soon enough as well. So having that price point covered is probably quite a wise idea.
Yeah. Game week 14 for me, I think. But if
Yeah.
you've got more than one, I think I would be sort of looking at him. Right. Okay. There you go, Sam. We thought we'd get through that in half an hour. We've got through it in an hour. So, right. Classic. 1 week punt update. What is next? Yeah, 59-37 last week. Neto scored for me. Bowen 2 pointer for you. We've both gone Palace this week, though.
Yeah, I've gone. Well, we've both gone attacking in a way, but I've gone with my boy Ismail Assar, who's been putting up all of the numbers and all of the data, and just has not been able to find the back of the net for Palace in the Premier League, at least. I'm really hoping this is the week. I really, really hope it is, because I feel like I'm owed it slightly, because I've held on to him for a very long time now. I've had him since I think game week 3. Even kept him through a wild card, kept him whilst he was injured for a few weeks as well. Come on, mate. I am owed this. So yeah, I'm doubling down. I've gone Ismail Assar this week. What about you?
How's Sar done in the international break? Has he
He
more goals?
played one, and then he was an unused substitute in like an 8-0, 9-0 win or something in the second one. So he's rested.
Okay. So he's got goals in the bank now rather than expending them in other competitions. I mean, yeah, maybe this is the week.
Yes.
Who knows? I've gone for Munoz this week. I did think that there's probably not much chance I'm going to buy him, so I'm going to use him up. I'm worried about the timings he comes back, but he's a Duracell bunny, so he should play.
He'll be fine. Yeah,
and we can obviously change them if injury occurs. We'll update you later on. Right, best captain this week. Dare you go against Erling Haaland, Sam? Dare you?
It's a week where you could, for sure. For me, but not to spoil the whole debate, I think if I had Salah, I would captain Salah. Outside of that, I think I'm still on Haaland. There's not a lot in it between Haaland and the Saka or Mateta. Bruno as well, I don't hate. And Burmo's probably in the conversation. But Haaland in the form he's in. And Newcastle, I do agree that they're much better at home. They have still been pretty decent at home even this season, but generally they're struggling a little bit themselves. There are a few narratives getting spun around Eddie Howe going back to basics and keeping it really tight. That's all well and good, but Man City are in formidable form, in goal-scoring form. And there's also the opposite narrative. For every positive narrative, there's a negative one. And the other narrative is, well, Man City could steamroll them, and it puts even more pressure on Eddie Howe and the system. So it can go either way. And the EO is still going to be high. They're without Dan Burn. Nick Pope's got a concussion. We don't know whether he'll be back. And I feel like for the first time, there are some Newcastle fans out there that are starting to turn on Howe a little bit. And I wonder if Man City get onto them early, if the crowd turn a little bit. That's purely speculative. And I'm sure plenty of Newcastle fans will turn around and say I'm an idiot for even suggesting that. But I do just wonder. Yeah, so if I had Salah in my team, I'd captain him. But outside of that, I think it's probably Haaland for me.
Yeah, I think it probably is. I think I had Mateta pretty high until Pereira got sacked, and I was like, I just don't know. Obviously, I'm not making out that Wolves' defense is going to turn to 80s Milan, but I just don't know about that in the new game away from home. If I did own Saka, I think that I would have more of a question about it, which may potentially push some people into thinking, "Oh, just buy Saka this week, then just do it." No, I'm probably just thinking haven't got that many points to play with here, and putting myself at risk and exposure call again in terms of the captaincy. But the EO's still going to be fairly high, and it's not as if he's not doing any goals, is it? Without Big Dan Burt, I don't know. These are all just points that people make, aren't they? I think it is Haaland, and I think that I'm just happy to just go with that for the time being. Just leave the captaincy on him and hope that the rest of my team do the job. I do think I kind of you put yourself at a risky like a risk fueled disadvantage if you don't captain week to week. This week is probably the best time to do it for the foreseeable if you're going to go that way. But no, I don't own Saka. I don't really trust Mateta. So I think that I'm probably going to stick with Haaland and go for it. If you own Salah, as you said, then I think that's the obvious captaincy, really. Because if you've owned him all this time and you probably don't own Haaland, there's nothing else you can really do other than that.
Yeah, 100%. I think even if I had Salah and Haaland, I'd probably, given all of the factors, I think I would still back Salah over Haaland very slightly. I don't hate Saka, but like I am, it is in the back of my mind I could do it, but I'm in a position where I'm relatively happy with how things are going. I just don't see why I need to take such a big swing when I've got Saka and I'll get net benefit from him anyway. And I do actually genuinely believe that Haaland does really well even in this fixture. Yeah, I think it's still Haaland for me. Sorry, boring.
Yeah, I feel like this whole pod's been on the theme of just chill, take it easy. It's just, I know it seems like a time of great kind of tumult, but actually probably we're just going to advise to do the obvious things. And moving on to our teams, well, I mean, for me with one FT, it is quite the obvious thing. So I think that I'm probably just leaning to grabbing Virgil for that for Gabriel this week, and just kind of chill in there, and probably, and this is just to add more fire to the beigeness, probably will be looking at buying the Croix and going week 14 for my Palace pickup for the Burnley game, and probably moving
maximum
out Tarko then. I can't wait for that one. Maybe ball will meet head when he's kind of 1 yard out, and it will kind of go in without him knowing anything about it against Burnley. But I mean, I think kind of just with Anderson at home to Sunderland, with Senesi at home to West Ham, and Gabriel at home to Forest, I think that's a decent enough back three this week. I'm sure that will hopefully that will take on the Palace defender. Q, Gahey coming back with a brace or something ridiculous to sink me. But it is what it is. I think kind of Enzo plays this one and probably ends up getting benched for the Arsenal game and then gets moved out for Saka eventually. But I mean, overall, it is kind of quite straightforward for me. I do expect Semenyo to be back. I do expect Enzo to be back, and the rest of the team's pretty good. So the front seven of Semenyo, Bruno, Enzo, Minte, Thiago, Mateta, and Haaland. What's that? Six pen takers. Well, 5.5 with Semenyo and Minte.
It's great.
That's fine. I think it'll be what it will be. Rodon first bench over Tarkowski.
That is a legitimately really strong front seven. I really want that front seven myself, to be honest. I think that's the perfect forward three right now. Probably, barring Saka, all of the midfielders I'd want. But like we already discussed, I don't think Saka's essential. And then, you're going max DEFCON in the back line. So I think you're very nicely set up for this next period. You've got 90-minute men on penalties with good DEFCON in the back, good clean sheet odds. Yeah, more green arrows. Keep that streak going, baby.
Yeah, let's see how we go. Right, 4 free transfers. You were on the therapy couch last week.
Still am.
I assume you're still thinking, I don't know, because there's loads of information to come. And Gabriel definitely has to go. It feels like that's kind of probably the most straightforward of things now. Does that change anything? I assume it doesn't.
I mean, Gabriel being out opens up more avenues to get to the other players I want, put it that way. So Gabriel coming down to even Virgil van Dijk gets me another, I think, 0.5 million to play with. At the moment, I've got 0 in the bank, 4 free transfers, no free hit to play, by the way, for anyone wondering. So yeah, I need to set up this team for the long term with no free hit. The players I want, if I were to just list them off, is Man United midfielder, Mbeumo or Bruno. Up front, I would want Thiago. I also do want Mateta. Although I'm coming to terms, I think, with maybe not having him. And Nketiah being back is slightly playing on my mind a little bit. They've got a very congested fixture period with Europe and they've got a thin squad. And Mateta has been tired recently and also went away with France and played. So I would like him, but I'm wondering if it's just worth going for Thiago and making it easier to get to Bruno in the midfield instead. And then I've also got like Voltemada on my bench right now as an easy player to be getting rid of, although he's been in great form with Germany. So I've got 4 free transfers. I don't really know what to do with them. The obvious move is get rid of Gabriel and move him down to probably Virgil. And then outside of that, it's probably trying to find a combination of getting to a Man United midfielder, and I'm weighing up whether or not I need to get rid of 1, 2, or none of the Chelsea boys this week. I can probably get on board with any of those 3 varieties. Getting rid of Enzo is my easiest route to a Man United midfielder, but there are ways I could make it happen to have Enzo and Bruno in my team by upgrading Longstaff. That would be selling both João Pedro and Voltemada to like a GU and a Thiago. That would work. And then I could also have Virgil van Dijk in there as well. So yeah, I still think I need some more news on some of the other players to make any decisions here. But yeah, I'm really on the fence. I don't know. I'm kind of going around in circles. I know I want a United midfielder over all else. I think that's my that's the main thing I keep coming back to. I'm like, I do want Bruno or Mbeumo, and the sooner I can get that done, the better. And then outside of that, I'm willing to make sacrifices.
I just look at your team every time and just think that is just rollable, other than Gabriel to Virgil, and just leave it. I know it's going to be the worst thing in the world to again be coming back to 4 free transfers, but it just feels like
it's easier to use them next week though, because I've got double Chelsea away at Arsenal.
Yeah, exactly.
At home to Arsenal even, so I can just get rid of both of them next week. But then it's
a better time. Yeah, maybe.
I like it. My problem with doing it next week is that stepping into Man United away at Palace, and I miss the Everton home fixture. Whereas I do actually think that Enzo gets reduced minutes this week anyway. And the reason I'm more likely to try and get it done now is because even this week, I prefer Mbeumo or Bruno over Enzo or Pedro. Like, I think they're better picks this week than either of the Chelsea boys, mainly down to expected minutes reasons, but also playing at home. Right. No rotation fears ever, because they're not in Europe, they're not in the Carabao Cup. Like, they've got the easiest fixture run out of any team in terms of the spacing throughout the entirety of Christmas. So it just seems to make a lot of sense to me, as does Thiago, because again, no Europe, no Carabao, all of that makes it very easy for him. Whereas Mateta does have that asterisk, and I do already have Sarah's cover, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
okay.
I could do nothing. I could obviously
Gabriel
Virgil, yeah, but or Munoz, but yeah, there are so many combinations. I'm also not against downgrading Pope to a Verbruggen, because actually Verbruggen and Dubravka, which I didn't realize, rotates extremely well, crazy well, and it's 4.4 million.
Oh, the Palace defense, sorry, the Brighton defense though, dude. I mean, it's just not. Yeah, I had Verbruggen for a while. It's just I had Van Hecker for a long time last year. That they are not the team that you want to be putting any faith in. But yeah, no, I know I do know what you mean. Yeah, so Gabriel to Virgil, certainty, and then it's just whether you. It's just the curse of analysis paralysis, effectively, because there's so many things you could possibly do. But it's good that you've at least kind of gone, okay, I think I can probably just about count what's going without Mateta. That kind of helps in terms of the route. And yeah, if you are feeling the United midfielder this week, then maybe that's your answer. Bench Anderson, I guess, and have that 3-5-2. Yeah, I mean, that'd be a really strong team. Honestly.
I just can't help but, I mean, you know how much I love Bruno, but also Mbeumo comes into that conversation as well now, and I can get on board with either. But I I just hate the thought of going without them for any longer. I really think that they are the play. And well, let me ask you this, because really my decision comes down to, do I need a Man United midfielder or do I need Mateta? Does the fact that Nketiah is probably back, and with Palace's fixture run coming up, does that cast any doubts whatsoever in your mind about how good Mateta is as a pick? Honestly.
In isolation, I think that there's definitely going to be some, because hasn't Glasner already made some remarks in the past about Mateta having to play all the time and it not being great for him.
Yeah.
So it would kind of concern me that he's going to lose kind of 15, 20 minutes every game. So you're
That's
looking at
still right.
XP70.
Yeah.
It's still good enough for Mateta, really, on pens and things like that. Versus United players, as you said, there's the certainty of minutes. There is currently them as an attacking unit looking very good. As much as it pains me to say, I think they're kind of 4th or 5th overall for Team XG, aren't they? And yeah, having one of Bruno or Bumo, I'd probably with the AFCON. With the AFCON FT, it doesn't really matter which one you go for, but probably Bumo's the one that is going to be the one who's going to be the biggest sort of downside coverage sort of pick. I think, as I said earlier on, he's doing all right in the underline. Getting one of them probably does make a lot of sense, to be honest. And yeah, they've got that mix that you like, haven't they, of the underlying data being good and the X minutes being good. So maybe it's good for your sanities just to grab one of them this week and get for that 3-5-2, get rid of Automade, and then maybe come back for, who knows, Harvey Barnes later on for 50 guy.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think I'm probably going to end up using all 4 of my free transfers this week, which I don't like the sound of in theory, considering my team already looks all right. But I also do think it is the time to attack, and there are so many picks that I do want. I think it does lend itself to being a bit more aggressive this week, when I think there are problems with expected minutes on Chelsea players. Gabriel's obviously out, and there are other players that I do really want now. I'm just trying to play around with FPL team on my phone at the moment. The other route I did like was, I think it was both of the Chelsea players out and Voltemada. So that's 3 of my 4. The replacements, if my maths are correct, it would be Thiago Welbeck, which I know you don't love, but I actually think he's probably okay. And then Bruno. And then I can also have Virgil in ahead of Gabriel, and that would be my 4 free transfers. So I'd be a strong 3-4-3 most weeks with stronger bench. So one hesitation I have about downgrading my 3rd striker to like a GU is, during this period, I probably want a stronger bench just in case of rotation. So does it make more sense to keep a long staff there who at least plays, and then also have that 4th defender on my bench most weeks, like Anderson, who doesn't have great fixtures after this week. So yeah, I'd be forgoing Mateta, but I would keep a Man United midfielder. I would have 2 more penalty takers in there, and Thiago and Welbeck.
Yep.
And although I don't have the Brighton player I necessarily want the most, I still have a Brighton player getting decent underlying data. I don't hate it. I think that might be my preferred at the moment.
Yep. Okay. I don't mind using all your free transfers now. I mean, there's probably one of those. It's the rare time that you just say, "Yeah, use them. Yes, use them every week. It's fine." So if you can set your team up for the next few, all the way to 16, then do it. And if you're happy with that, then I think that makes sense. Really, there's a way to go. But let's see how it goes. See how you look on Friday. We've got a lot of information to come. But it does feel like there's kind of one free transfer which we're both going to make, and the rest of it, you've got the luxury of the extra kind of free moves to do it. So perfect.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, a lot more thinking yet to come. I'll probably come up with a whole different bonkers idea by the time we get to the deadline. So we'll see where I end up, but I probably won't end up on the best possible route. I'll find some other way of screwing it up. So we'll see. But anyway, thank you all so much for listening, and especially tonight of all nights when Scotland have pulled off an amazing win against Denmark by the looks of it. So I'm going to go watch the highlights of that. So congratulations to all you Scots out there. We have been Who Got the Assist. You can find us on Blue Sky at Who Got the Assist, all written out. On Blue Sky for me is FPL Pricey. On X, it's WGTA_FPL. And again, FPL Pricey on there for me. And then on YouTube, It's who got the assist. Again, all written out one word, and FPL Pricey for me. I will be doing a Friday night live stream as well, where I'll probably be making my transfers and making all the mistakes if you want to tune into that. If you did enjoy the pod, we'd really appreciate if you could do one or all of the following, including following us on those social channels, giving the pod a 5-star rating wherever you're listening, and of course, leaving a like, hitting subscribe on YouTube if you are watching along with us on here. All of those things really do help us out, don't they? So thank you very much.
Yep. Thanks all. Thanks, Sam. Thanks for listening. We hope this is you think about game week 12 and international break injuries and what you're doing with Gabriel. Good luck this game week. We'll be back next week at the usual time and then figure out a schedule for the congested period after that. See you next Tuesday.
Oh, it's a goal. Who got the assist?